So the day of the accident, it was my friend's birthday. I don't talk about the accident often, sorry. Give me a second. I talk about it flippantly and then I actually think about it and I really do cry. Okay. The day of the accident, I was going to dinner with some of my friends. It was my friend's birthday. And everything was normal. I parked my car and I was about to go across the street to go into a restaurant. The way it was set up, it was like there was a corner parking lot, a street, another business, and then across the street was the restaurant. So I'm going across the crosswalk and I see this car like just sitting there and I'm like, yield to a pedestrian on a right turn. I thought that was the law. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go, when it clears. And I took about 4 steps into the road and she just guns a right turn. And it happened so quick. All I remember was seeing it. I saw the back of her head and the only thing I could think to do was stick my arm out. And so I just stuck my arm out and she hit me. And everything else was just like slow motion. I just stood there and froze. And yeah, that's what happened. So when it first happened, I didn't feel much of anything because I was just so stunned. But then like within minutes, it was just like I couldn't breathe. I was like, something is wrong. And I didn't know what. When I went and got to go see doctors and things like that, I found out that I had just injury to my spine. I think it was like 4 bulging discs, 2 torn meniscus, and 2 sprained ACLs. Oh my God, my life just came to a screeching halt because before that I was a server and a model. So I would serve during the week, and then anytime I would have a gig, I would go do that. And then I suddenly couldn't pick anything up or walk. And then I would go to the gym every day, if not every other day, and I couldn't move. So it took the things that I really enjoyed away. As far as like working out, being around my friends, I couldn't even go out really as like I would normally because I couldn't walk to keep up with them. I was so slow, and then like I was just in pain all the time, and that's not fun to be around. So like everything I did just stopped, and it was very isolating. A lot. It affected me emotionally a lot. I lost literally everything, so it made me like emotionally, it was just awful. Like, you go from being so capable of doing everything for yourself to, I needed help to just put a water bowl on the floor for my dog, and there was no one there to do it. And it was just isolating and affected me way more emotionally than I thought. I didn't realize till like, it was like 1.5 years of this, almost 2 years, to like about halfway through that I was like, wow, I'm depressed. This is not good. So yeah, it definitely took a toll on me emotionally. No, Armando was not my first attorney. I had 2 others prior to him. And I think just the overwhelming feeling that I had with those lawyers is that I wasn't being heard. They didn't feel like I was as hurt and injured as I was, since they seemed that the findings weren't as significant for them. They wanted me to either have horrible findings so that they could have an easy case, or they wanted me to go get a bunch of surgeries. And at 24, that's just not what I wanted. And I just felt like I wasn't being heard at all. I think just between the agenda of, the first one wanting the case to go quickly and to not have a lot of hassle with it, and then the second wanted me to do a lot of invasive things. And it's just, in my best interest was to heal my body. At 24, that's a very good probability. It's not like I was in my 40s. And they just weren't, that's not what they were interested in. They were looking at what was going to give them the best settlement outcome. I know my first lawyer for sure was the one that was kind of like, we're looking at a very low settlement. And at the time I had already used up my side of the insurance. And I was scared. I was really, really scared because I knew how badly I was hurting. And even though they couldn't really see that on maybe like the MRI or whatever they were looking at, they couldn't understand why I was hurting so bad. And it almost felt like they didn't believe me. And then them wanting me to settle at such a low rate was scary because I knew I could feel that I was at an uphill battle. Like I was at the beginning of trying to fix my body from what had happened. And then wanting me to settle, I was terrified and upset, to say the least. Like I was crying every day. So I found Armando in a two-hand kind of thing. So a really good friend of mine recommended a chiropractor to me, who I'm currently seeing. And he had also seen Armando. We hadn't spoken about a lawyer or an attorney or a lawyer. I just needed a better chiropractor and someone that was holistic focused. And so he had recommended them. When I get there, I had the best experience and was met with professionals and people that gave great recommendations. And so when they were hearing about the issues with my attorneys, the facility was giving me options. I said, do you know anybody? Like, what do I do? And they said, if I was going through this, here's who I would call. And at the very least, you can at least have what he says. Like, ask him questions, see what he says. He can advise you at the bare minimum. You've had two hands of lawyers or two hands of attorneys on your case. He may not be able to take it, but see what he says. And then they told me that, oh, by the way, it's your friend's attorney as well. And so I called him and I was like, tell me what I need to know. And he was like, if you can get him to take it, get him to take it. And so I called Armando the first time because it took two tries. The fact that he took my call immediately, that was a big deal for me because every time I'd try to contact a lawyer, I would get an office person. And when you're going through this, especially at 24, you just want to talk to the person that you know is going to take care of you. And when you can't do that, it's really frustrating because it feels like you're getting answers that don't really mean anything because they'll come back and be like, oh, my mistake. Oh, sorry, this and that. But when I spoke to them on the phone, I spoke to his secretary and I said, hey, I'm from so-and-so's office. They recommended that I called you. I'd like to speak with Armando if I can. And I spoke to him within 5 minutes. And he kind of got an idea of what my case looked like, empathized with me, said, I've also had an issue and I know what it feels like to be in pain. And I also know that it's an uphill battle. It's going to be a long time. And so he kind of heard me. He immediately heard me say, I don't mind being in pain a little bit longer if I can heal my body instead of just fix the problem. And he 100% agreed. And so from there, we kind of just got a game plan together on how he would be able to take my case since I'd already been, traded through so many different avenues already. I don't think I ever really felt like a case there, whereas I definitely felt like a case at other lawyers or other attorneys. I definitely just felt like Olivia or Liv when I was there because I sat and talked with them and they sat and talked with my mom and they remembered my mom, which was a big deal to me because as somebody that has really taken care of myself since I was 18, I was 24 when this happened. That's a good amount of years. I had to rely on her because I couldn't handle it. And so for them to acknowledge, not only do we need to remember her, we also need to remember who's helping her fight this. And so I don't think I ever really felt like I was just a case from the start. Armando and his team went above and beyond to really look at my case. They found things in the medical records that other attorneys didn't even want to take the time to look for. And that resulted in them, getting everything that they could for me. And it was worlds different. They never asked me to settle. And I feel like that's what other people were asking me to do. They were like, well, this should suffice. And Armando really went above and beyond, him and his team, to make sure that I didn't have to settle when it came to my treatment and what I needed, and then the things being paid for, and at the end, it ended up that they honored the policy for that. Justice is really just me getting the treatment that I need and being able to take care of myself post, settlement, post lawsuit, and the continued treatment that I'm gonna need, because this is gonna be a forever thing for me. And as long as that happened, and it did, that's really enough justice as it is, I would tell them to listen to what you feel. If you know something's not right, something's probably not right. And I would absolutely direct them towards Armando. I don't know what would go on if I hadn't found Armando and if he hadn't taken my case. And the level that they fought for me in areas and in rooms that I couldn't fight for myself, because I'm not an attorney and I don't know that world, is there's not an amount you could put on that. There's not enough I could say to tell somebody, at least give him a call him and see what he says, because his team will really go the extra mile for you. I would say Armando is the first attorney that I spoke with where I felt like we were having a conversation instead of me giving information and him just seeing what money was there. When I sat down and spoke with him, he genuinely cared. He saw me for a very terrified 25-year-old, 24-year-old. And he spoke to me like I was a person. And that what was going on mattered to me, so therefore it mattered to them. And they stuck that way through the entire case. Every time I spoke to them, I just felt like I mattered in that office, and that what I wanted was what they wanted. And so no matter what they had to do to get that, they were going to do that. And that was every conversation I had with him. I never felt like I was taking up his time or that I was an inconvenience, which had been my prior experience, because I always felt like they were too busy or I was a burden of somehow. And when I spoke to Armando, he would always make a point. If I called and I asked him to call me, he would call me back within a day. And he would spend the time that he needed to speaking with me, make sure that all my questions were answered. And he just treated me like I was a person, and that what I cared about, he cared about. I'm just very grateful. I say this all the time. As much as I wish I could go back and undo the accident, I'm grateful that I ended up where I did and with the attorneys and the team that I did, because this would not be the outcome. What he's done for me and for my family, this would not be the outcome with another one. I will tell you, I actually did not know that he was a Marine, but that makes a lot of sense because my mom and I were both raised by a career Marine. So her dad served 34 years in the Marine Corps. And that personality of humility and just realness is something you can't emulate. And so it makes sense that we got along with him the way that we did, because you can't teach that. There's a level that brings to somebody and a depth that brings to somebody that you can't manufacture. It is something that an experience brings you. And so it makes sense that he's a Marine. It makes a lot of sense. But his personality is great. I'm Hispanic, so I'm a little bit spicy. I always say I have a little bit of an attitude, and I can, especially when I'm scared, I can be a little snippy. And he took it to the chin, and he was like, I get it, you're scared. And he handled me and my mom beautifully. Just his personality is so easy to speak to. He's easy to get along with, and like I said, he's just so humble and so real that you matter. It doesn't feel like you're speaking to an attorney that is above you. and you're like asking for help. You are asking for help, but he's right there on the same level with you. And that, I think, is the biggest difference about Armando and his entire team. His entire team is that way.
Okay.